afternoon and welcome to another edition of the award-winning program, Talk of the Town. I'm J.J. Michaels, in for Denny Heindel once again this week. And we have a very interesting show and guest for you as we head into the spring and towards summertime. There is certainly a lot of folks getting outdoors and being open and having a lot of fun. But with that also comes some things this time of year where there's, well, I don't want to say threats, but they are, I guess, confusing things. And what do I mean by that? Well, it kind of falls into a hard-to-diagnose illness that frustrates some doctors and patients have it. And, two of the very more prevalent things are Lyme disease. And, well, we've been dealing with it for 3 years, and it's still around. And, of course, it's going to be for a while probably, but COVID-19. And our guest today is holistic nutritionist Danielle Pashko, who has not only dealt with both of these things, but has come up with some ways to help some folks that have to deal with it. Danielle, thank you so much for being with us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
It's interesting. When I was reading about you and everything that you do, it's kind of a neat little thing. I don't want to say neat because you've had to go through it, but you've had to deal with both Lyme disease and COVID, correct?
Correct. As a practitioner, which makes it even more ironic.
Yeah. And the neat thing is you come at it from the angle of you've had it, and you have been inside of the treatment of it, and helping folks deal with the side effects of it.
Right.
And you've got some really neat ways that have helped. I'm assuming have helped you, or else you wouldn't be talking to me about it.
Right.
But also that you have had to pass on to folks that patients and such, right?
Yes. It's something I'm very passionate about because I've experienced it, and I know how frustrating it can be for people who are not getting the help that they need.
Now, have you seen over, the realm of things here, pretty much what everybody understands is that COVID can affect people differently in different ways, meaning it's not a one-size-fits-all. I mean, I've had it twice. One time it was bad. Okay. The other time it was more just like a head cold. So, I mean, between that and Lyme disease, talk to me about that. Does it affect people differently?
It affects people very differently, and people are under the misconception that if you just eat well and you're healthy and you're young, that you're not really at risk for getting a long COVID, having after effects. And that's not necessarily the case. In the beginning of COVID, when we had Alpha and Delta, we saw people, getting really sick, and it was tragic. People were dying, and thank God that that's not happening as much at this point, and the cases are a lot lighter. But the pandemic now is really long COVID, and it can happen after just a very mild case of COVID, and that's what happened to me. It was pretty mild. It felt like I had the flu, and I thought after 10 days I was healthy and in shape and fit, and figured I would just bounce back. And I really was in a place where I had a lot of lingering symptoms that at times were debilitating. So that can really happen to anybody, and it's something to not to be cavalier about when you think you're going to an event or a party and potentially if I get COVID, it's just going to be like a cold. Not for everybody.
Yeah, and I know quite a few people who have had, still to this day, have had lasting effects from it. And it's weird. Some of the responses are, my memory just isn't what it used to be. I don't have the focus and the concentration. I mean, do you run into that sort of thing mentally?
There's so much that happens with COVID, and actually it's very similar to Lyme disease in that both of them are diseases of inflammation.
Yeah.
And also it has to do a lot with the reactivated viruses. So say, for example, when you were a child, you had Epstein-Barr, the virus that can cause mono, or you had a herpes virus, or you had cytomegalovirus, or all these different kind of viruses that we don't even think about that may have happened years and years ago. And COVID is like the match that sets off the flame in our body, and suddenly things that you may have had that are completely dormant start to become reactivated.
Huh.
And that's why a perfectly healthy person who says, but I was hiking every day and I was doing my yoga and I'm eating well and doing all this stuff, and how could this happen to me? And that's why it's happening. Maybe they are healthy, but maybe they also had these latent viruses that became reactivated.
Now, Lyme disease has been around for a long, long time. And there's constantly been studies done on it and work, but you yourself have had to deal with it. And I guess, how is that differentiated from COVID for you?
Well, when I had Lyme, actually, it's kind of interesting that these two syndromes are so similar that the protocols are almost identical, which seems odd because one is from a tick bite and one is from a virus.
Right.
But yet, both some of the things that help to minimize symptoms in both of these syndromes is one, to modulate the immune system. The other one is really to work on gut health, because your gut is where 70 to 80% of your immune system lies. So you really want to make sure you're doing that, and also work on therapies that reduce inflammation. And that goes for Lyme and long COVID. So those are the things I'm really focusing on with clients. Also working on helping with these reactivated viruses.
We're talking with Danielle Pashko, a holistic nutritionist who has had to deal with COVID and had to deal with Lyme disease and now is helping others with it. You have some suggestions, and I'm assuming these are things that you have passed on to patients that have helped not only them but their families. I want to get into this a little bit, is how people can adopt these therapies and these habits in their lives.
So there are things you can do, and there's 6 that I recommend that I've seen a lot of success with. The first one is compression therapy, and compression boots you can buy. They range from very expensive pairs that you can get for like $1,000 to $100 pairs that are very beneficial that you can just get on Amazon. And what compression therapy does is it's very good for circulation. It also helps with blood clotting, tends to occur more with long COVID. So it helps to prevent blood clots. Also, people can experience neuropathy or pain, so this compression therapy helps with that. Additionally, some people who have Lyme or long COVID can have issues with their blood pressure and their pulse and their heart rate. So it helps to regulate all of those. So I really love compression. I do it myself as a daily practice every morning, and I recommend most people get a pair of these compression boots and start using them. Another thing that's really good is I talked about gut health and modulating the immune system and eradicating viruses, which are very important, and mushroom therapy. So there's a lot of new that's going on now with mushrooms, and we're not talking about there's not psychedelic mushrooms. We're talking more about these are mushrooms with medicinal qualities, and there's a branded ingredient called AHCC, which really works for modulating the immune system. It decreases inflammation throughout the body. It's antiviral, and that's what we really need to focus on, is eradicating these viruses that are reactivating. It also works as a prebiotic. So that is good bacteria that feeds the gut microbiome, which really helps the immune system. It also regulates glucose levels that are impaired with both Lyme and long COVID. So there's a lot I can say about that. But if you want to look at some of the studies, you can go to ahcc.net and you can get more information. Additionally, with diet is very important. So we all know that a processed diet is not good for us, but we really want to avoid these inflammatory triggers that are going to make us feel worse. So that can be wheat, gluten. We know that a lot of people are going gluten-free, avoiding dairy, fried foods, sugar, and also a lot of people are not responding well to coffee, caffeine, and alcohol. Alcohol can be a very big trigger.
Oh, you're hurting.
Yeah.
A lot of people just twinged at that one.
I know. It's kind of unfortunate, but for, you don't have to do this forever, but while you're going through the healing process, it really helps to cut these things out.
Sure.
And really focus on eating a whole foods diet, eating a lot of organic, colorful fruits and vegetables, wild fish, some good healthy fats like olive oil and avocados, grass-fed meats and poultry, green juices, and also some certain spices or anti-inflammatory. So diet's really a big key, and I work with that a lot. Another thing people can do is acupuncture, and it doesn't have to be so expensive to do all of this. A lot of insurance companies will support acupuncture, and it's so good for pain and migraines and digestive discomfort and depression and anxiety and sleep, which we all need to get. Yoga is really good too, because you don't want to over-exercise when you're dealing with one of these syndromes that can really drain you. Right now is the time to focus on being more restorative rather than doing something that's going to hurt your body and put too much exertion. So I really think that's a great practice. Even yoga, tai chi, something gentle, but you want to move. And then the last one that I recommend, but I think meditation and prayer is good. You don't have to be religious. I'm not saying prayer in a way that means that you really just have to focus on having a positive mindset and also believe whatever you believe in, whether it's the universe or a higher power, that it's working and you're going to get better, and having a feeling of that you see yourself better. Visualization is very good, and having a positive mindset really is helpful, because the brain is very powerful, and when we're upset, we stay stuck in this negative feedback loop of our symptoms, and when we really have hope, it really helps in the healing process. So I feel that that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, with anything, when it deals with your health, I mean, the best thing to do is to start with your doctor, your primary care physician, to discuss any and all of those things, because they have your health history, they know your background and all that sort of thing. So I mean, that is certainly the number one part to go with, right?
Yes. Well, you want to get blood work done. You want to make sure that if you think you have Lyme or you think you have long COVID, you want to make sure, because it could be something else. So you want to just verify and see what's going on. But yes, you should definitely visit a doctor. And not all conventional doctors have the experience of treating Lyme or long COVID. They're familiar with it, but there are specific doctors who this is their specialty. So your first stop, you may want to see your primary care physician just to have a conversation. And then at that point, if you're getting some relief, that's fantastic. But if you feel like you need to take it further, then you may want to go the more functional medicine route. Go through a functional medicine doctor who's really looking a little bit deeper at the whole picture, or a naturopath, or someone if you have Lyme disease, who's Lyme literate or works with chronic illness, who can really have more suggestions in terms of therapies and also do the right lab testing and believes you. Because sometimes in the medical field, when you're dealing with something that's so strange or mysterious, I mean, Lyme itself can have around 200 symptoms. It's called the great mimicker because it has so many symptoms that it's hard to even pinpoint what exactly your diagnosis is. And long COVID works similarly. So you may go to a doctor and they could say, well, maybe it's anxiety, or maybe you should just get a little bit more rest. And maybe that's the case for some people, but maybe it's actually really has something wrong with you. So you want someone who believes you and can have empathy and actually works with these types of patients.
We're talking with Danielle Pashko, author, holistic nutritionist, and certified health coach. Plus, you do yoga yourself, don't you? You're an instructor.
Yeah, I don't teach so much anymore, but I was an instructor for about 20 years, and I still practice every day.
Oh, that's good.
That's
I guess, what's that?
I said, do you practice yoga yourself?
I can't bend that way. I can't do that. I guess the biggest question of all that I'd like to ask you is, how are you doing today? How have things been for you, and what kind of success stories do you have with your patients?
So I'm doing significantally better. The first time I had Lyme before I had COVID, I actually went into a full remission. It did take a year and a half, but it happened, and I had a lot of gratitude for that. Then when I got long COVID, I retraced my steps because, like I said, both syndromes are so similar. Yeah. And I still have some lingering symptoms, to be perfectly frank, but I am definitely in a good functional place. And I believe within time, our bodies have this innate healing system, and it's able to do that over time. So I believe that I'm going to get 100% back to myself. And with clients, I am seeing a lot of improvement, doing a lot of these therapies, really working on their diet and their mindset. And they just have to know it's a process. When you have a chronic illness, it's not like you take a medication and you're going to be better in 4 weeks. Yeah. It's you could have improvements and small gains, but just know that it takes time, have patience, and you'll get there.
Now, if anybody has questions or would like to learn more, how can they do that? Can they reach to you on social media? Do you have a website?
Sure. I mean, I'm on social media, Danielle Pashko.
Okay.
But also my website is pashkowellness.com. And I would also suggest looking at the website ahcc.net, which also talks about the mushrooms because I use them so much in my practice.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for sharing with us today and giving us some insight into something that, it's interesting in the materials that they sent us for the interview. It talks about a jigsaw puzzle with a missing piece. And doctors, and that really is how it is with this sometimes, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah. Any kind of chronic illness is like a jigsaw puzzle to be, unfortunately.
Right. Well, thank you for shedding some light on it, Danielle Pashko. We appreciate your time and continued good health to you and your patients.
Thank you. To you as well.
That's Talk of the Town for this week. For Denny Heindel, I'm J.J. Michaels. Have a great Sunday afternoon and a wonderful new week.